Welcome to the Show Me the Way podcast. I am your host, Andrea Miller, and I'm so excited to bring this show to you. Show Me the Way is a podcast dedicated to exploring the journeys of those who have faced adversity and found themselves on unexpected paths. We will have meaningful, thoughtful conversations about challenges we have faced and how we discovered and forged new direction. Prepare to be inspired and to uncover your own strength as you listen to relatable and motivating stories. Life has a way of twisting and turning, and we often need a fresh perspective to understand how to navigate. Let's show each other the way. In this week's episode of Show Me the Way, I sit down with my good friend Christine Spradlin, a name you've probably heard me mention before. Not only is Christine a huge supporter of the show, but she's also introduced me to some amazing past guests like Melissa Welch and Kari Grunwald. Christine and I originally met through a business networking group and instantly connected. We're both boy moms, soccer moms, and servant-hearted businesswomen who love supporting others. Christine and her husband own a restoration company, making her not only a trusted contact for home emergencies, but also the kind of friend you can count on no matter what. Although she was hesitant to come on the podcast, I knew Christine's story needed to be shared. She opens up about one of the most challenging times in her life when her family's home was destroyed in a house fire. From losing everything to living in a hotel and rental for months, Christine shares the emotional journey of rebuilding both physically and mentally. Through it all, she discovered valuable lessons: how to accept help, how to stay positive in the face of devastation, and how to truly believe that everything is figure outable. In our conversation, Christine also offers practical fire prevention tips, talks about her emergency restoration business, and reminds us of the power of community and the importance of having a strong village around you. Even if you haven't faced a similar tragedy, Christine's story will inspire you to find perspective, gratitude, and hope through life's toughest moments. Welcome back to the Show Me the Way podcast. On a recent show, I alluded that my dear friend Christine Spradlin decided she was open to being a guest on the show. You know, I've given her a shout out quite a few times as she has introduced me to some amazing people who have brought forth beautiful stories, inspired all of us, and were perfect guests for the Show Me the Way podcast. And ever since we started talking about the podcast, she's been a huge support. So I knew that I really wanted her to share a story when she felt comfortable. I met Christine not even a year ago, and she has already made such a positive impact on my life. We met in a networking group, and the light and joy that she's able to bring to a room is remarkable. She loves her family, her friends, and is the type of person that would drop what she was doing to take a call or to drive to your house if you needed her. I'm so blessed that I met Christine. I'm honored that we've become good friends in a short period of time. I love chatting with her, and I've loved getting to know her over the past few months. Like many of us, Christine has so many stories, I'm sure. But there are a few specific things I know she has dealt with in her life that she could definitely teach us all a thing or two about. Christine and I have a lot in common as she's a married mama of two boys, and we're also both soccer moms. We're both passionate about serving others, and after listening, you will definitely understand why I'm so grateful for her friendship. Christine, I'm so happy you decided to be a guest on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yep, like we had said, we met in our mutual networking group. Mom of two boys, both soccer players, well, retired soccer players now. But however, that's our common big connection. Married to my wonderful husband. It'll be 25 years in February.
Oh.
A very small town in New Boston, Michigan, which is south of the airport, just north of Monroe. One traffic light, you'd blink and miss us. We own a restoration business, emergency restoration. So, yeah, it's a whirlwind of a life we have, but we love it, and we are here. We talked a lot about the things that make us kind of unique in our pivot points in life, and like most people, 2020, not only with COVID, but I had a lot of pivot points in my life. It's probably more than I should have, but 2020 was for us more than just a COVID pandemic. My oldest son graduated high school during the pandemic. That itself was a strange and unusual twist. Not 2 weeks after we moved him into college, actually, back up one, our dog, we found out had stage 4 liver cancer 2 weeks prior to my son moving away to college. And then 2 weeks after my son moved away to college, we had a house fire. And it was a total loss fire, which means we lost everything. A youngest son was home sleeping. It was about 7:50 in the morning. My husband and I both got a phone call from my son, stating that we needed to come back. We had just both left for work, 2 separate directions, and wasn't even gone 10 minutes, and he said, "The house is on fire, please come home." And, obviously my first question, "Where are you?" And he said, "I'm outside at our meeting point." Those meeting points that we talk about and that we learn to talk to our kids about when they're young in elementary school, and we hope that we never have to do it. I did, and he was 12, and he had gotten out with one of our dogs and was standing at the end of our driveway, and so I instructed him to go across my neighbors, and I called her and said, "Apparently my house is on fire. I'm turning around, coming home, and Lucas is standing at your door. Can he just stay with you until I get there?" My husband and I both got here before the fire department got here and sat there and watched our house burn for about a good 20 minutes. So that was interesting in itself. If it's not bad enough that your house is standing there burning and you see the firemen running in and out, as soon as the fire was contained and they were cleaning up, to be able to leave, then they're out there interrogating you. And I know that they have to do their job. My husband and I, they kept us kind of separated and were asking questions and a lot of insinuations. And I'm like, "Do you think I would set my house on fire with my kid in there? Like, what's going on here?" It ended up being that it was an electrical fire that had started in the wall. Um, they said probably before, obviously, we even had a clue, days, hours, whatever. And fortunately, my husband was a volunteer firefighter in college and directly after college. So our house was equipped with more smoke detectors than a store. And it's funny what the laws are of where you need to have smoke detectors and where it's just optional. And thankfully, my husband had them like every square inch of our house. And Lucas, my youngest son, had 2 in his bedroom, 2 outside his bedroom, and was able to get up and get out and was safe. In the meantime, as I'm standing there watching my house burn, I'm calling my son's coach, who is in North Carolina at college, telling him, "Our house is on fire right now. He's probably going to hear this from friends, neighbors, whoever. I need you to be his support system." I mean, that was the hardest thing for me because he's away and we have this massive thing going on. And I knew the minute he heard, he was going to want to come home and be with us. And we're like, "No, you need to stay there. There's nothing you can do here. We can't even do anything here." So he stayed and it was a whirlwind. I remember after we were allowed to come back into the house to see what was going on, there was nothing left in my kitchen. The rest of my house, the ceiling had fallen, there was soot everywhere. We lost all of our clothes, we lost everything. Because we have a split ranch, you would think that the bottom half would be safe. Nope, there was soot, water everywhere there. It's during those times where you're just kind of like you're sitting there like, what am I going to do? What is even going to happen? Like I don't even know where I'm going to sleep tonight, let alone anything else. Friends and family showed up immediately. My mom and sister took me shopping, and I think the lowest point was when we walked into Target, and we're literally standing there, and my mom's like, "Okay, what do we need to start shopping for?" And I literally hit the floor, and I was like, I don't even know. I have nothing. I have absolutely nothing." But she's like, "Okay, we'll just." I mean, I didn't have Q-tips, I didn't have a toothbrush, we had nothing. And so, in that moment, we just kinda collected ourselves. I looked like a homeless person. I still can tell you what I wore to this day. I had an orange dress on, I had leopard sandals on, and I was covered from head to toe in soot because I had went into the house after and just, when they put out the fire, there's soot flying in the air, and people were staring as we were walking through the store and stuff, but, like, we had to rebuild. We had to rebuild our life, and, we had a wonderful insurance agent who, he was standing in my driveway with a check for us to go shopping the before the fire department even left, and it's those little things that you don't realize that it's like, we have money in the bank, we provide, but it takes a lot of money to get the little things to get going. I mean, like, we had nothing. We still had to go to work the next couple days, and my kid had to go to school because he just started school, and there was just a lot. We still had to figure out where we were sleeping. The insurance company ended up putting us up in a hotel where we lived for a month and a half. One of our dogs went with us. The other dog went with my sister-in-law for a little bit. When the dogs came out of the fire, obviously they were full of smoke and they smelled and all that kind of stuff. And my neighbor down the street came down and she took one of my dogs and she's like, "We will keep her for the night. We will bathe her. We will get her all ready to give you back tomorrow, and hopefully you'll have a little bit of a game plan." So we ended up going to a close by hotel where we continued to live for the next month and a half. And we lived out of a large tote. Everything we owned was in that tote. My husband the next day came and he had pictures that he had on his walls in the office. So when I came home from work that day, he had set up pictures and stuff so it would feel as homey as as we could. Um, but it's just one thing after another, and lots of lots of time and patience. And it's really hard to have patience when you're trying to figure things out and you just want things back to normal and you just want things situated, and you're at the mercy of everyone and everything. We were trying to find a house to live in. The insurance company is supposed to find you something comparable to your house. And we have a 3,400 square foot house. And like, I don't want to take care of somebody else's 3,400 square foot house. Like, I want just something where 4 people can live and 2 dogs. And it took us a while to get there. But when we finally did get something, it wasn't even completed yet because it was COVID, nothing was available. I mean, if anything was going to happen, it's like, why did it have to happen during that time? It was the hardest to get resources during that time. Even shopping, I mean, it happened on August 12th. All the school clothes are coming out, all the summer clothes are gone, and it was like 85 degrees that day, and it was hot, and that summer wasn't near over, but I didn't have any clothes. My husband didn't have any clothes. Nobody had any clothes. And, just trying to find stuff is was like really, really difficult. So we move into the rental, and when we moved in the rental, it wasn't done. A company had just obtained it and needed a lot of work, and we're like, anything that you could do to get us in, because we already been in a hotel for a month and a half. We were just like done. And we moved in. There's a lot of work that still needed to be done, but we're like, we can just be here while you do it. That's fine. They had to install a dishwasher. My mom was there with my son for the dishwasher installation. And the guy who installed it didn't take the papers out and set the dishwasher on fire. So yeah, same son that was in the fire. So that was an event, and it was just like one thing after another. Our friends and family can't say enough about them showing up, them being there for us. The actual night of the fire, we have a large group of friends that we hang out with, and they instantly were like, "We've got dinner. We will have dinner for you. We will put it together." And so there's like 30 of us, and we all sat down and had dinner. So it was one less meal we had to worry about. So that was great. Melissa, that you just had on the show, she lives in Jackson, which is probably almost an hour from us. She literally showed up in my driveway with totes for all of us and pajamas and toothbrushes and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I had come home from somewhere with my mom, and she's standing in my driveway with all this stuff for us. And I mean, the old saying, it takes a village. Like, I'm not one of those people who like to ask for help. I will help anybody, but I'm not that person who wants to ask for help and accept help just how I am. And that was probably the hardest thing for me, accepting help, but I needed help. We needed help. We really counted on our village to help us and get us through, especially those first few days. And then you kind of just sit there. And I think it was when we were in the hotel, it was the second night we were there. I learned that my computer was hacked from signing into the Wi-Fi at the hotel, and all my emails and everything was shut down. My bank account was hacked, and you just sit there and you're just like, "What else? What else? Have I not reached my point yet? Like, what else? Can you go pick on somebody else for a minute? I'm done." And you just sit there and you're like, "Okay." But then you're like, "You know what? This is not the worst thing that could have happened. My son could have died, and that would have trumped anything, and he didn't, and we were all safe, and yeah, the next year is gonna be a little difficult, and the next year is especially again, we're in the middle of COVID when you can't get things, and we have to rebuild a house. This is not how I wanted to rebuild a house, but here we are, and we are gonna get through this. And that was kind of like my turning point of here we are. We're doing this, whether we like it or not. My husband would wake up in the middle of the night to me crying, and he's thinking he's snoring or something, and it's just me having a meltdown in the middle of the night. And because during the day I had to be strong. So fast forward a year, we were able to rebuild our house. That whole process was very difficult because again, it's COVID. So things that you want, you can't get. Couldn't tell you what my front door is supposed to be. I know it's not what I picked out. My bathroom tiles, none of my bathrooms are what they're supposed to be. But you get to the point where you're like, you know what? I don't care. Stuff is stuff. I don't care. I just want to go home. So whatever you need to do to help me get home, it's great. We moved back in because the insurance companies will only pay to keep you in a rental for a year. So when we moved back in, um, we couldn't get our occupancy permit right away because the inspector only works on certain days, and the front door, we still didn't have a front door, and they still had it boarded up, and so we had to do some stuff with that, and we finally got moved back in. We didn't have floors. We had walls. We had part of a kitchen. We had one working bathroom downstairs, and we didn't care. We didn't have furniture, so we used card tables and folding chairs for a while, and then, I think we moved back in and it was the middle of August, and we didn't get our furniture until, like, part of it came in October. I remember we got our couch that we had ordered the day before Thanksgiving. And we do all the holidays at my house. And when we were in the rental, we still did all the holidays at the rental, which is a lot tighter, but we did. We managed because we wanted to try to keep it as normal as possible. We got rebuilt and finally back to what we would consider a normal life. If that wasn't bad enough, in November of 2020, my best friend ended up with COVID, ended up in on a vent. From there, ended up in on ECMO, and she had a 3% survival rate. And she was one of the first people to be put on ECMO for COVID. Normally, ECMO is used for like heart bypass, and they were trying to use it for lung bypass. The hospital would only allow 2 people a day to come in and see her because not only one is it during COVID, but 2, she was in a very extensive ICU. So they tried to keep everything as minimal as possible. And I was able to go see her twice. I spent my birthday with her, which was a huge blessing. And because it's right before Christmas. And I spent Christmas Eve with her before I went into my family stuff. I spent a good portion of that. And, I remember talking to the doctor and I said, what are the chances that she's coming off of this and going to be alive? And he's like, we haven't had any yet. And he's like, she has about a 3% chance of coming off of this. And it was one of those things that it's like, I've been hit hard between the fire. My oldest son goes away to college, which was a whole new thing. And now my best friend, my biggest support, is dying. And, talk about a helpless feeling. And she she ended up coming off ECMO. She has some residual issues. She had some strokes, so they had to end up taking her off. But she ended up coming off, and to this day, she's around, and we can still talk, and we can still go do things. And I always say, I'm like, I survived 2020. I can survive anything. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my that's kind of my story.
Well, obviously, I have all kinds of thoughts, and I've heard some of these things. I really appreciate your vulnerability and emotion and just being so real and raw with us. I know when you share the stories in more of a professional setting, it's probably very difficult to hold all the emotion in. So this is a great platform for you to be yourself and be authentic for our listeners. What's crazy to me is that you obviously have been through adversity and you thought, what will I talk about if I'm on your podcast? So, not to make light of everything that you've been through, but of
You have to.
course you have things to share. I mean, we all have stories, but I knew Christine had been through this. I didn't know the extent or the details that she shared with us today, but I knew that this was something that our listeners would want to hear. There's so many pieces to it. There's so many branches. So, as you all know as listeners and as Christine, one of my biggest, probably my biggest supporter for this podcast, it's called Show Me the Way because we've all been through different challenges, different pivots. And sometimes we feel like we're alone. Sometimes we feel like we're the only one during that time that have to make these decisions, have to go through this tough time. It's hard when people can't completely understand if they haven't been through it. So I really wanted to create a podcast where people could share their stories and put it out there so people do feel, wow, I don't feel alone. I went through something similar. Or even if they didn't go through something similar, just to have this in their back pocket, just to have the information. And you brought up so many, I always take a ton of notes and I have a bunch of things. And you brought up so many pieces that are important to the Show Me the Way podcast. I knew you would be a great guest. I kept bugging her about it. For season 2, I'm really trying to focus on the people, the community, the village. And you highlighted that more than once. I liked during the intro when I talked about how that's what I see in you, that you're there for everybody. You're the first person. I could see you going to somebody's driveway with a tote if they needed it. And if they were an hour away, you wouldn't even flinch. So it's amazing that you also received that back. And it's interesting that you said it's very difficult for you to accept help. I think a lot of people, I don't want to say especially women, but it seems like women have a really hard time asking for it. It's like they think that they're being weak or showing that they can't handle it all. And I was just talking about that with my parents who just took a major trip. They just went out of the country. I took them to the airport yesterday and they just landed today in Greece. And they're in their 70s and they need help. And I just kept telling them, please ask for help. Please ask for help because that's one of the biggest things that we struggle with. So I just kind of want to touch more on that. Like, I just don't think we're meant to do things alone. So I love that you brought up how important the people were to you and how you learned to start accepting the help and trying to advocate for yourself. So I would love your thoughts on how to encourage people to get over that.
Well, I mean, when you hit rock bottom, you kind of learn that you can't do everything by yourself. And I am definitely that person who, if there's a will, there's a way. Like one of my sayings I like to say is everything's figure outable. And
I say that all the time
I
too.
actually have a sign that I got from my husband, but there's there's a way for everything to work out. And one of my other big things is I always say it's not a bad day, it's just a bad minute. And sometimes it's even, it's not even one day at a time. It's not even 1 minute at a time. It's 1 second at a time. And there's just some things that you learn that you don't have to do alone. We want to try and we want to do things by ourselves, but we don't have to. And there's people who want to help, and you need to learn to accept it because life is too short and the world is too big. And if someone offers you help, no too big, no too small, and it's just you have to because you can't take on everything by yourself. And so that's one of the things that I've really tried to start practicing is that I don't have to do things by myself. I know I've asked you for help for things, and it's like just little things, just little things. It's just easier, even if you just got to practice with a little thing. Like, I mean, just little steps along the way, and it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of community, and one step at a time. Practice makes perfect, and one step at a time, and then it kind of becomes second nature, I guess.
Well, I can tell why we have clicked. I mean, geez, we kind of clicked like immediately. Everything you say is what I try to promote in life in general and also with this podcast. So, no wonder you've been able to give me perfect guests as well, because you just see what I'm trying to do here so clearly. And yeah, I always say everything's figure outable. Somebody said it to me once, and I thought, oh, that's amazing. I actually wanted to call the podcast that, but it's a book. So, I didn't really want to steal
Oh,
the
it is.
phrase.
I didn't even know
It
that. I
was
just
not
saw
my
the
own.
sign and I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh, that is so perfect."
yeah, I'll have to find the book and tag it and send it to you and also put it in the notes here because it's really good and it's very similar to all the things that you just said. But I do like that. I mean, geez, there's really no reason. I really don't understand why your family went through all of that, why you lost everything. I don't know why that happened. So, yes, I do agree with things happen for a reason, but I don't know what the reason was for you to have to go through all of that. But I do know that you learned quite a bit from going through something like that. And the other thing I want to touch on that you've said a couple of times around me is that you have this restoration company and you can help people that have been through similar disasters, but you and your husband can say we've actually directly experienced this. So did you already have that company before this time?
Yep. So we had it for about 8 years at that point. For those who don't know what a restoration company is, it's emergency restoration that we do. So when someone has a water loss, someone has fire, if you have mold in your home, we go in there and we take care of it. For fires, we go in there and we demo all the once the fire department has cleared, because that's the big thing. We can't go in there until it's been cleared by the fire department. The fire department will clear and say it's okay, it's no longer a crime scene, no longer an active investigation. And then we can go in and we basically just start tearing out and taking everything down to studs. Sometimes it's whole houses, sometimes it's just one room. If it's stuff that's like in a contained area, like a tiny kitchen fire or something like that, we can go in and we can clean it. But in a fire, most things aren't just contained to one room unless like the door is shut and it hasn't gotten out. Soot from a fire goes everywhere and it doesn't come off very easily. So our crews go in and we'll clean the walls, we'll clean the ceiling, we'll clean the nooks and crannies if it's not something that has to be completely torn out. One of the other aspects of it is we do content cleaning. If you got tchotchkes, if you got pots and pans and all that kind of stuff that didn't get ruined and needs just to be cleaned, we do that portion as well. And then there's other companies that do the bigger stuff like textiles and artwork and all that kind of stuff that we don't do. That's like way beyond our scope and we will send it out to them. But one of the big things is, like I had said, my oldest son was away at college. 2020, when everything shut down from COVID, my son, who was a senior, and a couple of his other friends, we were considered essential workers. So we did a lot of disinfecting, cleaning, and stuff like that. So my son and his friends, because no one wanted to work, they could collect the money and sit home. We still had contracts and stuff for cleaning and disinfecting that we had to do. So they would work. So if we had a job came in that needed to be done, we had an agreement with teachers that they would work and then do their stuff in the evening and vice versa. So once they graduated, they came and worked for us full time for a good portion. And actually, several of them are still there. But my son went away to college. So when we had our house fire, we did the demo of it. We worked with the insurance company directly. And so there was no weirdness or anything like that. And they detected and directed of what we could actually do. And that's what your insurance company does. And so his friends who grew up coming to my home as just a participant and a friend coming, they were actually the ones who were here in our first days when we were going through things, and they're sitting there holding up the trash bag as I'm going through things of throwing things away and all that kind of stuff, which made it real for them as well, because they were throwing away their good friend's stuff and they were sitting there with me, who they grew up with me as their soccer mom. And I'm crying hysterically, and they're just sitting there helping and trying to help preserve things and help trying to do things. When I say that I've had a few people reach out to me, and I always say, you don't have to use our restoration company, but if you have questions, call me. I can walk you through those first steps, because you don't get that direction from your insurance company. They don't tell you what to do. And your insurance company has to provide you with people to use for things. But if you know somebody, you can say, "No, I'm gonna use them instead." And that's okay. But I always tell everybody, I'm like, "Just give the people my phone number. Have them call me. Let me walk them through those first steps." Because, the one thing that everyone wants to do when you hear of somebody who's had a house fire or, had some tragic thing, you wanna help and you don't know how to help. And the best thing you could do is give that person a gift card, or Melissa showed up for with the box of totes. I always say, you need a tote because you're living out of this for a while. Like when we moved out of our rental, we had acquired a few things, but I didn't want to get too much because, I didn't know what my house was going to be like. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I did know that I like the clothes I had to get because it was in desperation clothing that we were getting stuff that I didn't wanna wear any of those clothes again, because for a year, I tried to keep it small because we had a very small closet that me and my husband had to share, and I knew that I didn't wanna wear that stuff again because I had worn that for a year straight, and there was too many bad mojo going
Yeah,
on with that.
everything attached to it, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was the first thing I did is I got rid of all my clothes that I had from there, but I'd, like, started to gather some new stuff as a way. But, yeah, just little things that you can do. Give people gift cards because 'cause they're unfortunately
Mhm.
gonna have to eat out for a while. I mean, I don't know how it is now with trying to find locations for people to live in after fires, but I can tell you during COVID, there was nothing available. Logistically, we wanted to be able to keep things as normal as possible for all of us. So, yeah, it was a process.
Right, and going along that line, I know you said that your husband had more smoke detectors than general or than what we probably have or what is required by code. But going through all of this, do you have like a couple of tips or things that you would tell people just for preventive or not even to prevent a fire? I don't know how you could have prevented a fire. That was something that you guys didn't even know was going on. But I think we all think this would never happen to us.
Yeah.
And like, for example, paperwork or like birth certificates or important documents like that. Did you already have that in a safe? I mean, what are some things that are just a quick tip that somebody should take from what you've learned?
Yeah, so, yeah, it was in a fireproof safe, they make those for a reason. Please get one. We actually had it at the time, we had it in our garage, so it wasn't even directly in our home. I mean, it was, so it was, like, in a safer place. Um, I know it sounds weird, but when you have to go through after with the contents people, they they literally go through every item of everything in your home. I could tell you how much I didn't know before, but now after seeing the report after, I could tell you how many metal cookie cutters I had, how many plastic cookie cutters I had, but like my overhead cabinets. So that was all because of the heat. They fell off the wall during the fire. And I had to tell them as best as I could what was in my cabinets. And I mean, we've lived in this house for 20 years. I mean, I can tell you I probably had glasses that were in there since the day we moved in, and just trying to collectively. So one of the things I do say is maybe once a year, once a quarter, just go through, open up your drawers, and take a quick video of what's in your rooms, what's in your drawers, what's in because trust me, you want to be reimbursed for everything, every little thing. And then after when you buy things, they give you this huge book full of everything you owned, and you have to take that item with that receipt and like price attach it to an item. And so that's what I always tell people. I'm like, you're going to have to save your receipts, you're going to have to do this when you come in from shopping and buy stuff, like, automatically attach the number of the item to that receipt and, like, put it away. Like, because I didn't do that right away. We did it at the end, and let me just tell you, a year's worth of receipts and having to match things up because if not, you're not getting paid for it. You wanna be reimbursed for your stuff, and because the insurance company gives you money to get you going, and then they have the allocated, like, money that you're going to get for your total loss of items, but as you replace them, you have to turn your receipts in and then they reimburse you from the big allocated fund. So it's time consuming and it's a lot of time management. because stuff that you don't think of, some of the stuff that I instruct like people through, because nobody knows that. And why do you want to have to figure that out after? It's kind of like lessons that we tell our kids. I tell you things because I've already been there, done that, and I don't want you to have to do it the hard way and find out. I've done this. And like when I go in and do presentations for insurance companies, I have a big banner that has our picture. When I first started with our company, because I just joined us a few years ago, there was a banner and it just had some random picture on it talking about our services. And that was the very first thing I did, is that I got a new banner on it with our picture of our kitchen, because it's a talking point. And when we're doing presentations, like people are like, oh, yeah, it's a restoration company, blah, 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 blah. But when I tell them that that's my kitchen and it happened 5 years ago, it stops people and it makes them want to listen. And then it turns into, wow, I hope I never have that problem. And then I always say, but if you do, please call me, not only for the restoration portion, but for the fact that I can help guide you so you don't have to deal with the headaches that I had to.
It makes a big difference when you can relate or when somebody can share their real stories. I mean, it's totally not the same, but as a realtor, the fact that I've bought and sold homes, I can say from personal experience, here's what I went through. Here's what the closing was like for me. Here's what it was like to look at all these different houses and decide which one I wanted to put an offer on. So when you have personal experience to share, it really does make a difference. Unfortunately, you have that personal experience to share, but it does make a difference. But wow, yeah, I think some of those tips are great. You're right. No one ever thinks about anything like that, and then once it happens to you, you're just probably completely overwhelmed, and to just know that there's somebody you could call who has been there, I think makes a big difference. So I will for sure be plugging your company and your information, and I love that you put that out there. Call me. Again, I just think you are so open to helping others, which goes back to accepting help from others, because if you're willing to give it, then chances are somebody would love to give it back to you. So I love that it all comes back to that. I want to kind of go back to what you said about your older son who wasn't there, and that you told the coach, his soccer coach, that you needed him to be his support. Touch on that a little bit more.
So, like I said, they were in the middle of soccer practice. And like my first thought was, as I'm literally watching my house, and I'm like, the guys are going to come here and they need to hear it from us first instead of my workers who are his friends, because that's going to just be even more devastating to him. And so I, like I said, I called his coach. They were in the middle of practice. He happened to answer. And I just said, I'm literally in the middle of watching my house burn right now. I know Robbie's on the field. He is going to need some support. He knows nobody. I mean, they had literally been at school for 2 weeks, and he went to Gardner Webb, and we committed sight unseen to the college because of COVID, and he didn't know anybody. And we didn't have any family or friends that lived, in the North Carolina area that could go help him and support him. And I sure as heck couldn't go at the time, and neither could my husband. And so the coach was like, okay. He's like, we got him. We will make sure that he is engaging. We will make sure that he's interacting. I will personally check on him. Because he had a roommate, but at that time he wasn't living in a dorm with like all the rest of the soccer players. And then he called, of course, and wanted to come home. And we're like, no, you're where you're supposed to be. You just need to keep focusing and doing your stuff. And we would send him pictures. He wanted to be a part of it, but he had to do it from afar. But the coach, I remember it was exactly a week later, and I got a call from the coach, and it kind of gave me a heart attack for a minute, because I see the coach calling me on a Saturday, and I was like, "Oh gosh, what happened?" And he was like, "I just wanted to check in and see how you guys are all doing. I wanted to let you know that we've been checking in with Rob, and we've been making sure that he's all good. And if you've noticed any concerns when you're talking to him, let us know. We're just going to make sure that we continue to keep him engaged and keep him safe and interactive and everything, and make sure if we see any behavior different or anything like that, that we jump on it right away." So it was very comforting to know that they were looking out for him. And they'd only met him 2 weeks prior. So it's not like they'd like known this kid and he'd been on his team for a couple years. I mean, they were dealing with what they knew how to do at a crisis moment as well. But they stepped in, and forever grateful for that, because again, I that's one less person I had to worry about. Unfortunately, the kid took half of his clothes when he moved to school because wasn't sure. It's North Carolina. What kind of weather am I really getting? And so he had most of his stuff, which that was our running joke, that when he would come home to visit us when we were in the rental, like for the holidays and stuff, he literally would bring home almost his entire dorm. We're like, "Oh, no, no, you're going back." Like, and he's like, "But yeah," he's like, "I just want to stay home. I can homeschool, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "No, no, no, you're going back because that's what your job is." And then when he did move in, when school was done, we were still in the rental for I think like 4 months or something like that. He collectively had more stuff than all of us put together. And I'm like, we don't have room for all of your stuff in this small house here. And so we had to throw it all downstairs. But it was one of those things that it was like kind of comical, because we've literally for the last 9 months been living out of totes, and you've got 2 carfuls of stuff.
That is funny. I do like, though, talking about the coach because that touches on a couple of things that you brought up. One, again, advocating for yourself, advocating for your son, and it it would be difficult to ask somebody you barely know to step into that role. But it also tells me, again, going back to the people in your life, the village, reaching out to people and understanding that they want to help and seeing the good in somebody like that to call you out of the blue just to make sure things were going okay. That was unexpected. And I think with all that's going on in this world and the negativity and the news and the violence, and there's so much that people can take, and that's been a big thing for me over the past week, even more so, is I talk to friends or I talk to people that are like, "Oh, this world, oh, life is awful." And they're focused on the negativity, which is not a place I like to be in. You pointed it out earlier, life is short. There's so many little things that in the grand scheme of things don't matter. And you personally have experienced that. And I just love that you kind of brought that to light because it really made me think, here's somebody that just shows you the good. Like this coach you barely know and gave something good to you and your family. And I think there's more of that out there than we realize. And it's important to remember that and to remind people that there is some good in this world.
Yeah, there's good in every day. You just have to focus on it. Somebody in one of my other networking groups gave me this little book, and because every day on Facebook I always post these posts, and everybody's
You do. Yes.
like,
Love that.
"Oh, they're so positive. Thank you for the positivity." And then I get the people who are like, "Why do you have to be so cheerful in the morning? Why do you know?" And it's like, you know what? There is so much ugliness in the world and so much negativity that I and believe me, I have my moments. Don't get me wrong. We all have our moments where we're just like, I wanna complain, I wanna do stuff, but I try, and I've even in the last 5 years, I've been trying even harder to find something positive every day. Every day there's gonna be a mad moment. Every day there's going to be something good. And what you choose to focus on, whether it's the good or the bad, is how the rest of your day is going to come out. If you focus on the positive, those things that seemed like huge things become little things. And if you focus on the little things, they become the big things. And I choose to want to focus on the bigger, more positive things, because I've had enough negativity in my life and I've had enough negativity in this world that I just choose not to put myself in that personal space, and try to have more of a positive outlook on, what's in front of us. You can't go backwards because you can't change it. If you think too far ahead, you deal with anxiety. And so be in the present, focus on what's good in the moment. And so that little book that she gave me, she's like, I want you to write down one positive thing that happened in your day. And I've been doing that. And you look back on it and you're just like, well, that doesn't seem like it's very big. But in that day, it was huge. You got to focus on the positive. Life is too short to focus and follow the negative.
And again, I know why we clicked right away because I try to have the same mindset. And you're right, there's days that I don't always go that way, but when I find myself spiraling, or to your point, if you look too far ahead and you've got all this anxiety, I try to reel myself in and try to focus on the good. And it's funny that you said about that little book. I need to find a little book like that. But I have a I have another, also a little like journal. And a friend of mine had posted on Facebook, I don't know, at the end of last year or at the beginning of the year, saying that she and her now husband every Sunday would write something that they're thankful for. And then after the year is up, go back and reread everything. And she said it was such a fun exercise, interesting exercise to go back and understand what you were thankful for at that time. And so I started doing that and I've kept up with it. So it will be fun to go back and see, like, what were you thankful for at that time? And some of them are going to be silly, like, oh, I really had a great dinner, or the sun was out, but it'll
Right.
be fun to go back and read that. So very good tips, either to do that every day, things you're grateful for, or things that made you smile or were positive for you. I think those are great tips and great ideas. And yeah, you're not going to be singing and walking on rainbows and next to butterflies all day every day, but if you can
Right.
find the positivity, I just think it's just a more joyful way to live. And you're right, we don't know what tomorrow brings. We really don't. And I just think you brought so many great things to light and such good tips, not only from a practical standpoint, but also just in general in life and parenting. And I know that a lot of my listeners are going to take, as I say in almost every episode, these nuggets and move forward in their day, hopefully learning from everything that you shared. And I am so excited that you decided to be on the podcast. Again, I
You.
kind of thought you would touch on the house fire. I'm sure I could have you on 3 other episodes and you could talk about other things you've been through or other things that you're going through. But I think that was a very good story to share on a platform like this, just for people that have gone through something similar or may go through something like that in the future, just to know they're not alone and they can survive and they can find positivity and the light at the end of that tunnel after that very, very stressful, emotional, long year and everything that happened after it. But I love where you choose to be now and the headspace you are in now and what you are bringing to everybody. You have brought so much positivity to this show, and you've made me feel like even if I have 3 listeners, I can keep going, and it's important to share the stories. And yeah, you introduced me to Melissa and a couple of other people that have just really brought everything I want into the show. So thank you for doing that. Keep looking out. I'm sure you have other friends that need to be on the show too. But yeah, I just thank you for I wanted to give you time, but thank you for being open and being vulnerable and sharing this story today and all of the tips, all of the advice, and just continue spreading the joy and the positivity that you're spreading.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for pestering. For
I'm good at that.
I love you. But thank you, and you have an absolutely wonderful day.
Yes, you too.
Thank you for joining me for the Show Me the Way podcast. I truly appreciate you tuning in to today's episode about overcoming adversity and finding your path. I hope it brought you new insights, empowered you with perspective, and inspired you to find joy in your journey. If this episode touched your heart, don't forget to leave a quick review, as it will help us reach and motivate more people. Until next time, keep seeking the light and showing the way.